Hey everybody, this is Jason Rogash. I want to make a video today about a couple of things. It's about this term, the regressive left. The idea of the regressive left, of course, was created by the phrase actually was created by a British Muslim who was kind of radical. Was a radicalized Muslim. You could call him a fascist Muslim, and he became more secular, and he coined the term the regressive left. People like Sam Harris, who I don't care for, have kind of run with this because what the regressive left term essentially means, and you can look this up on Google for yourself if you feel free to, but essentially it means that liberals, old school 60s liberals, they've gone too far into try to understanding Muslims and don't accept through multiculturalism, through political correctness, that the Muslim religion, in fact, is a violent, horrible, oppressive religion that foments fascism just by its very nature. And the left in Great Britain and in America and in other places have been too kind to Muslims and are regressive because of that. And he includes Noam Chomsky in this. Now, to me, Sam Harris, it's a baseless assertion about Noam Chomsky. In fact, it's probably one of the stupidest things that I've ever heard anybody say about Noam Chomsky, and I've heard some whoppers. Anybody that would call Noam Chomsky regressive anything simply hasn't read his work. And you could kind of tell from Sam Harris that he's probably gone online and read nothing that Noam Chomsky's done, or just read overviews of Chomsky's stuff. If he had just read the last 10 books that Noam Chomsky's written, or any of the articles that he's written since 9/11, or anything, or any of the essays, or any of the editorials, he would have figured out that Noam Chomsky deplores Islamofascism, doesn't accept violence from anyone, isn't hypocritical, and I think people like Sam Harris are hypocritical a little bit. America can do one thing, but Muslims or countries that have Muslims or whatever, they can't do this. There's like a double standard. America is to call Noam Chomsky. I'm gonna get back to my point. To call Noam Chomsky regressive anything is very, very, very ignorant and very immature and extremely juvenile. And for Harris to continue down this line of being so anti-Muslim, that because this all stems from Sam Harris's absolute disdain for anybody who's religious. He finds religion to be a danger to our society. He finds it to be, and particularly the religion of Islam. Now, let me be clear. I agree with Sam Harris on some things about what he's speaking of, about the regressive left. In one sense, there are Islamic fascists that have nothing to do with the West, meaning the West did not radicalize them in any way, shape, or form. Just like there's Christian fascists who, go kill abortion doctors, or Jewish fascists who go kill Palestinians, and whatever fascist part of the religion. There's the liberal parts and there's the conservative parts. Okay, now there are Muslims out there who kill because they're radicalized, and radicalized people do stupid shit. People who believe in a book that's written thousands of years ago and in an invisible father figure in the sky, and they take it literally and they interpret it all literally, they tend to be zealots, and zealots do zealotry things. Okay, they kill, they bomb, they do horrible shit. And because of Islam's stand against homosexuality, which Christianity, by the way, has the same stand. I don't know if anyone's, I don't know how many right-wing Christians do you know, how many even Christians, period, do you know that accept homosexuality on any level? No, they don't go into a gay nightclub and kill a bunch of gay people, but there has been gay bashings. Matthew Shepard, anybody? So it's not like Christians aren't vile in their own way, or anybody that's radicalized by any belief system isn't vile in any violent act that they do. It's unacceptable, and anybody that commits violence against another human being, whether it be a state or a terrorist, is bad. It's all bad. And it's worse when the state does it, because the state has way more power, and the state has way more power than the terrorist does, period. And it should show more restraint. The state should always show more restraint than an individual, because the state represents, the masses, etc. So when Harris refers to Noam Chomsky as regressive, I think that's the problem I have. I don't have a problem that there may be something to what Sam Harris is saying. There may be some people out there who go too far in protecting certain groups of people because political correctness, because of votes, because of relationships. And let me get into this, why I think Sam Harris and the term the regressive left is an oversimplification and very dangerous. America supports tyrants, okay? In Muslim countries, in any Christian countries, it doesn't matter, whatever country, if they're religious, and America has business interests in it, particularly Muslim countries, they support dictators. You can go back to the 50s and Mossadegh in Iran being overthrown and the Shah put in, the Shah being a very, very, very radicalized Muslim, a fascist. You can go back into the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem being a Hitler supporter. You can go back to, in fact, Muslim fascists exist. But then you need to acknowledge that the West puts in fascists. We put in people who are strongmen. We put in people, like in Saudi Arabia, we support Wahhabism. It's a very radical form of Islam. And it's supported because it's been in part by the West, because we don't like, the West doesn't like to deal with America particularly, doesn't like to deal with countries with democracies. Because democracies tend to, or socialism tends to, communism, etc., tends to be for labor and for nationalization of companies and natural resources. Meaning the people get the money for their own natural resources. Look at what nationalization is if you don't know what it is. America doesn't support that. America supports hardcore right-wing people. And they specifically do it in the Mideast. And you can show a history of American influence in the Middle East. That's the CIA, etc., has radicalized and has used divide and conquer strategies to create destabilization so that the multinational corporations can come in and take the natural resources, or trading lanes or deep sea lanes for their submarines, whatever the military industrial complex plan is. And I suggest anybody that doesn't believe me about the history of the United States, go read Smedley Butler. Go read about War as a Racket. Go read about, you don't have to go that far back. Go back to the 80s and look at American Central Intelligence Agency, an intelligence agency in the military, paying the CIA, paying the Iraqis to kill Iranians and Iranians to kill Iraqis. You can go and look at the illegal invasion of Iraq. You can look at the illegal invasion of Afghanistan. You can look at drone strikes being run into Pakistan, a sovereign country, but drone strikes being run into these villages that are supposedly quote-unquote terrorists. The part of land that we are currently embattled with Muslims, quote-unquote, is the richest land with natural resources on the planet Earth. And it's largely controlled by Muslims. Matter of fact, it's almost entirely controlled by Muslims. And you befriend the Muslims you can, and then you radicalize and you divide and conquer the ones you can't. And this is what empire does. This is what the British did. This is what the Romans did. This is what every empire does. And America is absolutely no different. America, since World War I, since the end of World War I, it's been over 100 countries in regime change or outright revolutions or changing of a political class of people because of the American business interests. That's not okay. That's not right. America should not go into other countries secretly, or any countries really, and foment revolution through the CIA, through just simply so you can have better terms for your businesses, for your Western businesses to go in and really legitimately take all of the natural resources, take all the value out of these countries. And this can be shown to be proven as well. From Saudi Arabia, from Dubai, the Arab Emirates, you can go into Iraq and Afghanistan. You can go into these other countries that America has supported the worst kinds of fucking people. And that's not discussed with people like Sam Harris and others. They completely leave out America's responsibility for the radicalization of Muslims. Does that justify a Muslim walking into the Pulse nightclub and killing 50 people? Of fucking course it doesn't. That guy, he's dead. He should have been. That's when I think the death penalty. I'm a liberal, so I don't really like the death penalty. But that's when I think the death penalty should be. That when you kill that, when you do something so heinous and so bizarre like that, we don't. He claimed he worked for ISIS. He claimed he was. He supported the Muslim. Blah blah blah. That's one guy killing 50 people. It doesn't compare to the United States continually. Look at what is going on in Syria. We're against ISIS. Now we're for it. Now you're for ISIS, and we need to use help with them so we can invade Syria. What? We're against the Taliban, but now we're kind of working with the Taliban. Where Al-Qaeda exists, but now Al-Qaeda has been destroyed, and it's moved on to ISIS, and it's a different thing. It's as though it's a game that none of us are privy to all of the rules and all of the information that's going on. And we don't know what our intelligence communities are doing. And it seems to me that when we do find out about our intelligence community's activities or our the military-industrial complex activities in the Middle East or these countries that are predominantly Muslim, we are surprised that these people are angry at the West. And this started, like I said, don't you remember in the 90s, Yankee Go Home? The first Kuwait War, the American military tricked Saddam Hussein, who was a CIA asset, tricked Saddam Hussein into invading Kuwait because April Gillespie went on vacation. She said, "Hey," she just didn't answer back whether or not for sure that America would go after the Iraq military. April Gillespie just went on vacation, didn't answer the telegram, and so he invades Kuwait, and the American military then makes Saddam Hussein their enemy, and did everything they could from that time on till, what was it, 2003, 2004, when they killed him. Whatever year he was captured and killed, I can't remember, 2006, 2008, whatever the fuck it was. It's all about, and you think that's not going to anger anyone? You think there isn't going to be Muslims who see that and go, I mean, think about it in your own country if your president was killed, or somebody that you supported was killed. If you supported a president or you supported a leader and they were dragged and hung in public. I mean, seriously, folks, there is anger at us, and we should be trying to figure out what we can do so we don't have any more terrorist attacks, so we don't have any more pissed off Muslims running, because I believe Islam is the largest religion in the world, and there isn't just right-wing Muslims. There's tons of secular Muslims. For instance, the gentleman who came up with the term the regressive left is a secular Muslim. And the idea that it's a dangerous game to play, and it's very fascist when you start to say this religion all bad, and it represses homosexuals and it represses women, and it's all bad. So does the Bible. So does the Christian Bible. But because we live in a secular society, and because we've kind of, for whatever reasons, we've grown out of it, we've analyzed it, we've psychologically come to grips with faith and understand some people have some, we don't use the most radical parts of the Bible anymore. They're still there, but we don't use them. Christians don't use them. And I mean, most Christians. And most Muslims don't use the most radical parts of the Quran. They just have no need for them. And throw in American support of dictators and shahs and sheiks and kings and people who oppress their people, who keep their own country backwards, Wahhabism and supporting certain types of Muslims. That has caused an anger towards the West that cannot be denied. And when you call someone like Noam Chomsky regressive, that's an oversimplification to a point of almost hilarity. Because if anybody on this planet is not regressive in any way, it's Noam Chomsky. He's not overly PC when it concerns Muslims. I've read his stuff. I've actually read Noam Chomsky's stuff, his information, his books, his articles on these subjects, and he is not regressive. He talks about fascist Muslims. He talks about the support of fascist Muslims for Nazis. I've heard him talk about it. I've read his articles about it and his books about it. So when I start to see this idea that somehow Noam Chomsky is out there with a sign saying, please don't oppress any Muslims, and any Muslim that does anything is acceptable, and PC, and that's not what's happening. That's not what Noam Chomsky's doing. And Sam Harris, frankly, I think is doing all of this just to get attention. That's all he's doing. And this is an aside, but he's a rich kid. He grew up rich. His mom's Susan Harris. She created the sitcom Soap and Benson and a couple of others. She's wildly, fabulously wealthy. Sam Harris is part of that 1% kind of shit. I don't mean that he's so rich that he's part of the 1%, but he's part of that, America worked for him. He's a rich kid. I don't think you'd know who the fuck Sam Harris was if he wasn't a rich kid, because his takes are just below average. He should stick to the low-hanging fruit of attacking people with faith instead of going after people like Chomsky, who have spent the last 60 years of their career pointing out American foreign policy, pointing out other countries' foreign policy. He's not an blame American firster. He's not an oversimplifier. He's not some flip fucking conspiracy theorist who writes 100-page books about what's going on. He doesn't talk about the Federal Reserve, the Jewish banking conspiracy. He doesn't talk about fucking dumb shit. He's not a 9/11 conspiracy theorist. He's a real, actual, factual analyzer and somebody who has put in the work and done the work. It's not as though Noam Chomsky hasn't put in the time, hasn't put in the experience. You can read his stuff about this. That's why this makes Sam Harris so unbelievably ignorant. It's as though he doesn't give 1/10 of one shit about what Noam Chomsky's written. What he wants to do is to to shut people like Noam Chomsky up, it seems to me. Because his own opinion is incorrect about Muslims. His own opinion about faith and religion and all that shit is his own opinion and his own ideas. And he has become almost a zealot against Muslims. Like he's almost had a religious anger towards Muslims and doesn't have any and doesn't tell us all the context of it. He doesn't give us the reason why Muslims are pissed off. He doesn't give us the reason why American foreign policy seems to support only dictators and supports Wahhabism in Saudi Arabia and other places. And let me just leave you with this. If you believe 9/11 was exactly what the media and the government told you it was in the military-industrial complex, that it was 19 air hijackers, 15 or 17 or 15 of which were from Saudi Arabia. They hijacked 4 planes, slammed 2 of them into buildings, 1 into the Pentagon and 1 into Shanksville, the ground into Shanksville, Pennsylvania. If you believe that entirely, that's great. But that has been called by mainstream, like people like the New York Times. I've read it in the New York Times. It was called blowback. The CIA fomenting radicalized Muslims that were Mujahideen members, right, who fought the Russians in Afghanistan. Then this is fact. This is mainstream fact. This isn't conspiracy theory. Then became Al Qaeda. Al Qaeda then becomes radicalized for whatever reason. The West radicalizes them. They're radicalized in their own country. Their belief in their ignorance, their whatever. Their violent nature, propaganda, whatever reason you believe that they were radicalized. Then they hijacked planes and they did the devastation of 9/11. That has been called CIA blowback by mainstreamers, by people who are not fucking out in the fringes or not marginalized because of their correct opinions or their correct analysis that might hurt American empire. And if that's true, then Sam Harris should acknowledge that even that basic idea that the CIA foment using Muslims and then helping radicalize them, organize them, fund them, give them weapons, etc. And we can go even further with Saudi Arabia. You've seen with the 30 plus pages that were redacted from the 9/11 report that recently came out about Prince Bandar, who his nickname is Bandar Bush, who at least helped fund and move around at least 2 terrorists of the 9/11 attacks. Saudi Arabia, our ally. Bush holding hands with the king of Saudi Arabia, a guy that has direct connections to the Bush family, business-wise, personal-wise, etc., is actually caught funding 2 different terrorists and moving them around, and that was and not only that, but many people in Saudi Arabia. This violent Wahhabism, radicalized kind of fascist form of Muslims that we support because they have a lot of oil. And they're OPEC. They're the largest member of OPEC. It's that alone you could point to as something that may be part of the problem that why Muslims are pissed off at the West. Now, does it justify them bombing? No. No violence from anybody. You do violence, you're off the fucking, you don't even get an excuse. I don't care what your reason is, you don't go fucking kill innocent people. That's fucking, you don't blow yourself up to make a statement? Great, go do it. But you don't take innocent people out. I don't care how pissed you are. So Sam Harris is correct there. And Sam Harris is right. There is Islamist fascist, and Sam Harris is correct. There are times when people go too far to protect bad people. And they don't call a spade a spade. They don't say that guy is bad, this guy is bad, this group is bad, because maybe political correctness, partially. Maybe it's too much understanding, certainly. But to ignore the entire history of the West and why Muslims are radicalized, aside from their religion, and our support of strongmen and dictators, I think needs to be talked about. I think it needs to be put into context. Thank you for listening and have a wonderful